There's something they never tell you about the spiritual path. It's not full of light in the beginning. It doesn't start with peace or bliss or divine love. It begins with darkness, with confusion, with a silent scream inside your bones, as if your soul is being torn from everything familiar. You don't float into awakening, you fall, and the fall is brutal. I've been there. And if you're here watching this, it means you're either in it now or you've just crawled out. What I'm about to share with you isn't theory. It's the roadmap, the one hidden behind every sacred text, every initiation, every quiet whisper from the universe that says, you're not crazy. You're awakening. The first dark stage every chosen one is dragged into is what I call the collapse of the known. It's the moment when life as you've built it begins to disintegrate. At first it looks like bad luck, a breakup, a job loss, a betrayal, a health scare. But if you zoom out, you'll see a pattern. The universe isn't punishing you. It's surgically removing everything that kept you asleep. The life that once made sense starts to feel like a costume that no longer fits. You try to hold on, but it slips through your fingers like sand. And the harder you grip, the more it hurts. This is spiritual demolition. Everything false must fall. Because the identity you built, the one shaped by your parents, your culture, your trauma, it cannot carry who you're becoming. I remember when it hit me. I was living what looked like a perfect life. Money, status, recognition. But inside, I was hollow. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. every night, heart racing, drenched in sweat, with the same thought looping over and over. This is not who I am. I tried to ignore it. I drowned it in distractions. But the collapse had already begun. Within 6 months, I lost everything. Friends disappeared. My business crashed. I was forced to move into a tiny room with no windows and no idea who I was. I thought I was cursed, but I was being cleared. The collapse wasn't the end, it was the invitation. So I ask you, what are you still clinging to that your soul is trying to destroy? What illusion still comforts you while secretly draining your life force? The second dark stage emerges from the rubble of the first. Once the known collapses, you enter the void. This is the stage where nothing makes sense. You aren't who you were, but you don't know who you're becoming. You feel like a ghost in your own life. You can't go back, but you don't know how to go forward. Time distorts. Days blur. People look at you like you're functioning, but inside you're floating in nothingness. This is the space between stories, and it is terrifying. In the void, your ego starts gasping for air. It tries to rebuild the old life. It tells you to go back to what's safe. But your soul is silent, not because it's gone, but because it's watching, waiting, seeing if you'll choose the old script or if you'll wait long enough for the new frequency to rise. This stage is the most dangerous because this is where most people quit. They run back to a toxic job, a dead relationship, an old identity just to feel something again. But the chosen ones, we sit in that void. We let it stretch us. We let it strip us. We let it hollow us out until only the truth remains. One night I sat in meditation for hours, begging for answers. Nothing came, just silence. And then, in the stillness, I heard a whisper, not from outside, but from somewhere buried inside me: "You are not lost. You are being emptied." That was the moment I surrendered. I stopped fighting the void. I let it swallow me. And in that surrender, something cracked open. Not a voice, not a vision, just a shift, a knowing, a vibration that said, "Keep going." If you're in the void right now, I want you to know you're not broken. You're not behind. You're not cursed. You're being reborn. But rebirth doesn't feel like light. It feels like death. And that's exactly what it is, the death of who you thought you had to be. So here's the question: can you sit in the silence long enough to hear your soul speak again? The third dark stage is what I call the mirror of madness. This is when the shadows rise. Not the outer shadows, your shadows. Everything you thought you had healed comes back louder. Childhood wounds, old traumas, addictions you thought you beat, all of it. And it doesn't just return, it gets amplified. You start questioning your sanity. You see patterns in people that disturb you. You hear your own thoughts attacking you. It feels like you're being haunted by yourself. And in a way, you are. Because here's the truth no one tells you: before you can access the light, you must integrate the dark. You must turn and face every part of you that you buried, denied, judged, and exiled. The spiritual path isn't about becoming good. It's about becoming whole. That means reclaiming your rage, your jealousy, your grief, your shame, not to indulge it, but to transmute it. I had a night where I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize my face. My eyes looked wild. My aura felt fractured. I started shaking uncontrollably. I thought I was having a breakdown. But what I was really experiencing was a purge. My body was releasing lifetimes of suppressed emotion. My nervous system was recalibrating. My identity was dissolving. I cried on the floor for hours. And when I got up, I was lighter, quieter, more real. This stage is sacred, but few survive it. Because it forces you to stop pretending. It strips you bare. It shows you the parts of yourself you swore you'd never let anyone see. But when you meet those parts with love instead of judgment, you unlock power. Not ego power, soul power. The kind of power that can hold both light and dark in the same breath. Ask yourself this: what part of you are you still hiding from the world? And what would happen if you finally brought it into the light? These three dark stages: collapse, void, madness, are not punishments. They are initiations. They are the fire that forges the chosen. You don't awaken because it's trendy. You awaken because your soul is done playing small. You awaken because the world you were born into cannot hold the being you're becoming. But this is only the beginning. Because once you survive the fire, once you crawl through the void and face the mirror, something happens that no one can prepare you for. You begin to remember, not with your mind, but with your being. You begin to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. You begin to feel a quiet pulse of power beneath your skin. You begin to sense a mission that has no words but calls you forward with every breath. The next part of this journey is where the real magic begins. Not because it's easy, but because it's true. In the next chapter, we unravel what happens after the darkest night. We uncover the hidden gift inside the pain. We reveal the signs of your real awakening and the hidden traps that try to pull you back into the illusion. The hidden gift buried in darkness, how the pain unlocks your true identity. Most people think the darkness is where you get lost. But the truth is, darkness is where the chosen ones are found. Not by the world, not by others, but by themselves. Because there is something sacred hidden in every collapse, every void, every descent into madness. Something that can't be bought, taught, or faked. Something ancient. Something terrifying. Something divine. And that something is the memory of who you really are. You don't remember it all at once. It comes in fragments. A dream that feels too real. A flash of knowing that wasn't there a second ago. A deep, primal feeling in your chest that whispers, "I've been here before." And in that moment, it hits you, you were never meant to fit into this world. You were meant to remake it. But your human self had to be dismantled before your soul could take the wheel. You had to be emptied before you could be filled with truth. This is where the hidden gift begins to reveal itself, and it doesn't come wrapped in light. It comes disguised as pain, loss, and confusion. Because pain is the language of the soul when nothing else is getting through. Pain is the echo of your soul screaming through the fog of your conditioning. If you numb it, you miss the message. If you avoid it, you delay the gift. But if you sit with it, if you dare to let it burn all the way through, you'll find something waiting on the other side. A version of you that cannot be manipulated, cannot be broken, cannot be made small again. That version of you has always been there, buried under layers of performance, obedience, and fear. And the darkness wasn't a punishment, it was the shovel. It was the hand that dug up your buried power. There's a reason why every mystic, prophet, and awakened soul throughout history went through some kind of exile. Moses, Buddha, Jesus, Rumi, even modern visionaries, they were all dragged into isolation, into silence, into the unknown. That's not a coincidence. It's a pattern. Initiation requires separation. You have to be pulled away from the noise of the world long enough to hear the signal of your soul. And when you finally hear it, when you finally stop seeking answers outside yourself, you begin to notice something strange. Your pain starts to speak in symbols. Your dreams become more vivid. Time starts bending. You begin to feel things before they happen. You say things you don't remember learning. That's not your imagination. That's your multidimensional memory coming back online. Your pain didn't destroy you, it upgraded you. It unlocked the dormant codes in your DNA. It opened the veil. It shook you awake. I remember a moment during my own awakening journey where I was walking through a forest alone after weeks of isolation and grief. I hadn't spoken to anyone. I felt like a ghost. But as I walked, I suddenly felt this overwhelming presence around me, like the trees were listening, like the air itself was alive. I stopped, and in that stillness I heard a voice not outside, but from inside my bones. It didn't speak in words. It spoke in knowing. It said, "You are not who you thought you were. You are the answer to a question the world forgot to ask." That moment broke me open. I wept not from sadness, but from the weight of remembering. I couldn't unhear it. I couldn't go back. That's what the gift does. It rewrites your entire operating system. And nothing looks the same afterward. But here's the part most people miss. Once you remember your true identity, the world doesn't suddenly welcome you with open arms. In fact, it often resists you even more, because you're no longer controllable. You're no longer predictable. You no longer fit into the boxes they built. You stop chasing validation. You start speaking truth. You become a mirror, and mirrors are uncomfortable. They don't lie. They reflect. So yes, you'll lose people. You'll outgrow environments. You'll walk into rooms that once felt safe and feel like a stranger. But that's not a loss. That's alignment. Your vibration is rising, and not everything and everyone can rise with it. That's not your fault. It's your function. You're not here to be liked. You're here to activate, to awaken others just by existing. And that begins the deeper initiation, learning how to live fully awake in a world that's still asleep. This is where the second layer of the gift reveals itself: discernment. Once you awaken, your senses sharpen. You start feeling energy in conversations. You pick up on subtle dishonesty. You sense motives behind the words people say. Your body becomes a compass. And if you don't listen to it, it punishes you quickly. Headaches, burnout, anxiety. That's your nervous system telling you this is not your frequency anymore. You no longer get to ignore your intuition, because now you know. You can't pretend anymore. That's the price of awakening. You lose the privilege of unconsciousness. But in exchange, you gain something far more powerful: the ability to choose from alignment, not fear. The ability to say no without guilt. The ability to walk away from anything that disturbs your peace. And the ability to magnetize what matches your new vibration without chasing it. So the question becomes, can you trust your new operating system, even when it makes no logical sense? Can you follow your inner knowing, even if it leads you into more uncertainty? Because the awakened path is not about safety, it's about sovereignty. And sovereignty doesn't feel like comfort. It feels like power. Quiet, grounded, unshakable power. The kind of power that doesn't beg. It doesn't prove, doesn't perform. It just is. And when you stand in that power, you become a living transmission. People feel it. They don't understand it, but they're drawn to it. Some will try to copy you. Some will try to silence you. Some will try to worship you. But your job is not to be followed, it's to remind, to reflect, to awaken. And here's the final evolution of the gift: purpose. Not the kind of purpose that's tied to a job title or a career path. I'm talking about soul purpose. The reason you incarnated, the frequency you came to anchor, the wound you came to transmute, not just for yourself, but for your entire lineage. Maybe even for the collective. Because chosen ones aren't chosen because they're better. They're chosen because they volunteered. They agreed to carry more, to feel more, and to remember first. And in doing so, they create a ripple effect that changes everything. Your suffering wasn't random. Your pain wasn't meaningless. It was the forge that shaped your medicine. And now you carry that medicine in every word you speak, every space you enter, every boundary you hold, every truth you embody. So let me ask you the only question that matters now. What will you do with the power your pain has unlocked? Because the gift is not just for you. It's for the world. You are the bridge between dimensions now. You are the living evidence that awakening is possible. You are the proof that darkness doesn't mean death, it means rebirth. And the next phase of this journey is not about survival. It's about creation. In the final act, we explore how the chosen ones rise not just spiritually, but practically. How they build lives, movements, and legacies that are encoded with truth. How they become architects of the new earth. How they forge paths where none existed before. And how they stay grounded in their power without being consumed by it. You've walked through the fire. You've felt the void. You've stared into the mirror. And now, the flame inside you is no longer just a spark. It's a signal. And the world is about to respond. The rise of the new earth builders, how chosen ones become architects of reality. At some point, the chosen one stops asking for the light to find them. They realize it's been inside them all along, waiting patiently, painfully for them to remember. And when that remembering becomes embodied, when it moves from being a concept to a state of being, something extraordinary begins to unfold. The chosen one becomes a builder, not of businesses or brands, though it may look that way on the surface. No, they become builders of frequency, of timelines, of new realities. They become architects of the new earth, not because they were given permission, but because they remembered they never needed it. The first thing that happens when this shift begins is a deep urge to align every aspect of your life with your soul. It's no longer enough to just meditate in the morning and then go sell your energy to soulless systems by afternoon. That duality becomes unbearable. The internal voice that once whispered becomes a roar. You start looking at your relationships, your work, your habits, and asking, does this reflect who I really am? And when the answer is no, you can't unsee it. You can't unfeel it. That's when the restructuring begins. At first it feels like loss again, like another collapse. But it's not destruction for pain's sake, it's sacred demolition. You're clearing space for the real you to live fully, not in fragments. You are becoming your own sacred space. And this is where the practical power of the awakened chosen one begins to shine. Because now, every action you take becomes encoded with your frequency. Every message you send, every step you walk, every word you speak, it becomes a vibrational imprint. And that imprint creates ripples. People feel it before they understand it. They don't know why they're drawn to you, why they feel safer around you, or why your presence makes them question everything. But you do. You know you're no longer just a person. You're a frequency carrier, a walking transmission. And with that knowing comes responsibility. Not in the heavy, burdensome way, but in the sacred, aligned way. So what does a new earth builder actually do? They build from energy first. They don't chase metrics, they follow resonance. They don't copy others, they channel from within. They don't wait for the world to be ready, they become the frequency that prepares the world. That means creating lives that are rooted in sovereignty, not survival. Businesses that are encoded with truth, not manipulation. Relationships that are built on resonance, not trauma bonding. They become examples not through perfection, but through presence. Because they don't just talk about awakening. They live it, visibly, unapologetically. And yes, this path is still lonely at times, because when you rise into your full power, you stop matching the frequency of the masses. You may find yourself in a room full of people and feel more alone than ever. But that's not a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that your signal is getting clearer. You're not meant to blend in. You're meant to vibrate so purely that others either rise to meet you or fall away. And both are sacred. One of the most powerful things a chosen one can do is stop trying to convince anyone of anything. Just live the truth. Let your alignment be the loudest voice in the room. One of the key attributes of a New Earth architect is their ability to navigate multiple timelines. This isn't science fiction. It's vibrational physics. Every decision you make creates a ripple. Every energetic choice places you on a new path. The more awake you are, the more you start to feel the branching of these paths in real time. You begin to sense, if I say yes to this, I'm entering one timeline. If I say no, I'm entering another. And with that clarity comes power. You no longer make decisions based on fear or logic alone. You make them based on frequency alignment. You tune into the version of yourself that already exists in the timeline you desire, and you act from that state now. This is how chosen ones collapse time. This is how they quantum leap. But here's where it gets even more beautiful. As you stabilize your frequency, you begin to magnetize your soul tribe. Not just any community, but the ones encoded to recognize you. You won't need to explain yourself. You won't need to shrink. These are the ones who see you, remember you, and walk beside you not because they need you, but because they know you. These are the other builders, the other architects. And when you link up, something ancient activates. You begin to build things that couldn't be built alone. Movements, technologies, healing systems, art that carries light, spaces that recalibrate people just by being in them. This is the New Earth, not a place we escape to, but a frequency we anchor here. And yet, the world will still test you. Systems will still try to pull you back into old roles. People will still project onto you. Triggers will still rise. But here's the difference. You no longer collapse when that happens. You respond, not react. You observe, not absorb. You use every challenge as a mirror to refine your frequency even further. You become unshakable. And not because you're above it all, but because you're rooted in something deeper than it all. You've moved from survival to creation, from fear to embodiment, from seeker to source. At this stage, you may feel called to teach, to lead, to guide others through their own darkness. Not because you have all the answers, but because you've walked the path of forgetting and remembering. And now your presence becomes a map. You speak not to impress, but to activate. You don't rescue, you remind. You don't create followers, you create mirrors. And the more you live in this way, the more the universe aligns around you. Opportunities find you. Resources rearrange. Timing becomes perfect. Because you're no longer chasing the future, you're broadcasting it. But here's a final truth. Being a builder is not about doing more. It's about being more. More present, more honest, more aligned, more still, more authentic to your soul's vibration than you've ever dared to be. That's what changes reality. That's what opens doors that logic could never find. That's what makes miracles feel normal. And that's what you came here to embody.